Both the government and the opposition have come out and said education is their number one priority, and in this election campaign we'll be testing that pledge. The issues that we've identified for the election is the need for a significant reinvestment in secondary provision, support for students with behavioural, emotional issues, and with disabilities. So they're the areas that we're actually campaigning on right now in the lead up to the state election. There's simply being more resources put into primary rather than secondary, and that's been reflected in the proportion of students in this state who are actually educated in government primary schools compared to government secondary schools. Well, we're calling on both parties to make a significant reinvestment in secondary education and also to do further research into why parents are choosing to send their children to either government or non-government schools. Right now in Victoria, just over 70% of Victorian children are educated in government primary schools. When it comes to secondary schools, it's 58.5%. Regional rural schools are funded differently in recognition of some of that tyranny of distance. Some of the most challenging areas are probably around the Wimmera, where there's big distances between schools. The schools are smaller, the capacity to staff particularly secondary schools and offer a broad curriculum. But there's some pretty exciting stuff happening there with video linking, and so I could be the biology teacher in one school but actually have students in 2 or 3 around, so there's some exciting things happening. But the big issue is there's a much lower school retention rate in country Victoria than in, say, metropolitan. Statewide, it's just over 81%.
Going to year 12.
Going through to year 12. Yeah. But when it comes to metropolitan, that's about 88%, and we're down in the mid-60s when it comes to most of the regional centres. No principal should be put in the position of deciding, do I spend my money on employing teachers to deliver a comprehensive program that the community expects, or do I take some of that money to put into a program for half a dozen students in the school, and therefore have 1 or 2 less teachers and narrow the curriculum. They're the sort of choices that schools shouldn't have to make, and government should be funding school according to need in a bigger way than they are at the moment.